Hi, this is Ritu Teharia. So today we have General G.D. Bakshi Saab with us on TO O'Clock. Hi, sir. How are you?
Very good, Bachche.
It's so great and wonderful to have you on TO O'Clock. Trust me. You have served 37 years in military. You have been author for like 36 books. So let's start with your military journey. You secured rank 2.
Yeah, that was a long time back.
Yeah, but I've heard this that you were selected as an Air Force cadet. Is that right?
That's right, that's right, that's right. And the simple fact was that, when I had appeared for the NDA exam, I used to read a lot of this commando comics. When I joined the NDA in the medical examination, they said there could be some problem with your eyes and you may not get flying. So I said, what the hell am I going to the Air Force for if I can't fly, if I can't fight? And then I switched over to the army. And also because my elder brother, he was from J&K Rifles. So I joined the same regiment.
Okay. So, as you served for like 37 years, which is a huge period, right? You've served in Kargil, you've served in Wellington, Keshwar. I mean, these are the memorable postings of your career, right?
That's right, that's right. Most of my service life was spent in combat.
Yeah.
So when I started my service, my batch was commissioned a month before the 71 war, and we just got 10 days leave to see Mama, Papa, and then we were catapulted straight into the war. On the very first night of service, we were in the fighting. Many of my good friends got killed. Many got badly wounded. They lost their arms. They lost their legs, but we are very proud of the fact that in 14 days, we were at the forefront of a war that had broken Pakistan in two. And
Okay.
we had created a new country with the force of arms. And Bangladesh was born, and 93,000 Pakistani prisoners of war had surrendered. You know, it was the greatest military victory after the Second World War. So that is how we started our military careers. Then I fought in the Punjab as a major company commander. I commanded 6 troops in the Punjab in 1985, and you know what had happened in 1984. And I'm very proud to say that I never got greater, support, greater trust and backing than from my Sikh boys involved in the most difficult task of their lives. From there, I became a commanding officer and I was posted to Kargil, where I fought in the first intrusions that took place in 1990-91. They were blanked out of the media, but we had very fierce fighting there, so fierce that in my own one single unit, 6 boys were killed, 21 were wounded. One of my boys lost both his eyes, and we got a number of awards. We had a Veer Chakra posthumous, Havaldar Tilak Raj. We had 4 Sena medals. I was given the Vishish Seva medal for that action, and it really was a superb performance by the boys. We gave a bloody nose to Pakistan's 29 Baluch. So that was Kargil.
Yeah, sir, if we talk about particularly about Keshwar, you were posted as a brigadier over there, and there was a lot has happened over there. Those Atangwadis knew that Brigadier Bakshi and his boys is not going to afraid of them, right? So what they did, they started killing the innocents in, Gulabgarh, in Tagore. They were
That's
killing
right.
women. They were
That's
killing
right.
those old people, those little children, be it Munni or any other girl. So how did you deal with it? I mean, there was a huge pressure. ऊपर से pressure आना शुरू हो गया. आपकी unit से बंदे कम कर दिए, and you succeed. So how did you deal with it?
Because I gave the matter deep thought. Now, I had just about 2,500 boys at that time. One of my battalions had been taken away to strengthen the main road despite my protests. And then I thought to myself, I have just 2,500 boys left now. I had 3,000 plus earlier, but I had then just 2,500 boys. I had 11,000 square kilometers of area to guard, and one of the most mountainous terrains in the world. Even if I put one boy in each square kilometer, two-thirds of the area would be left uncovered. If I defended this village, they would attack the other. If I defended that, they would attack somewhere else. So I said, I have to break this logjam. I said, I will not defend, I will attack. So
Yeah.
what I did was I went to the Gulabgarh village where they had killed 13 of the minority community, the Hindus, and mostly they were little boys and girls of 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and there were an old couple of 75 and 70 who were there, who had taken the children up to the pasture, as they do in the summer. They take them to the high pasture for grazing their cattle and their goats, and they come back with lot of ghee and paneer and everything that they make there. So that is where the terrorists had hit them, and they had killed, 13 of them in a very grisly, ghastly fashion. So I went to that village and I camped there. I took one company from one battalion, another company from the other, took some boys from my headquarters, camped there, and I said, look, I am not leaving till you tell me who did it. Kisne kiya ye? So ultimately, all the Gaon Buddhas, they found the army is not going, and they were getting quite hard.
And everything, right?
So then what we did was they gave me the names: Abu
Yeah.
Mustafa, Abu Ghulam, Abu Umair. So I said, okay, get all your able-bodied males in the school. I want to talk to them. So I said, here I want to give a message to Abu Mustafa, Abu Ghulam, Abu Umair. तुम जहां भी हो तुम भागो. You run for your life because the army is after you. और चाहे हमको एक हफ्ता लगे, एक महीना लगे, एक साल लगे, we will hunt you down and we will kill you horribly because you have violated the injunctions of the Holy Quran. The Quran says, in a jihad, spare the lives of the women, the children, the old and the infirm. And you have done precisely that. अब तुम भाग लो जहां तुमको भागना है. So it took me a month, but they ran like hell and everything. But finally we surrounded them in a forest in Tata. There was a clearing, and we used flamethrowers and we burned them to ash. We took photographs. Their AK-47, all the wood was burnt, and it was so hot because of the flamethrower that the barrel had come into a U, the AK-47 barrel.
Of AK-47.
And that how hard that metal is. He said, look, whatever you do, don't touch the women, the children, the old and the infirm. You want to fight? You fight with us. We are paid to fight.
Yeah.
You do that and we will get after you and set a horrible example out of you. That was better in September 2001.
Yeah.
September 2001. And for the next almost 25 years, not a hair on the head of any of the minorities were touched. जो सारे भाग गए थे to Himachal and the other places, they came right back. Had we done the same thing in the valley, the Pandits would not have had, the Pandits would not have had to flee.
All right. So if we talk about a particular moment from your military journey, which one is the most memorable moment if we talk about a particular moment?
That happened in Kargil. And in
Okay.
Kargil, we had a BSF post, and BSF boys, they don't have as good weapons and all that, and their khaki vardi stands out. So the Pakistanis targeted that post very hard, and they brought in an anti-aircraft gun, an anti-aircraft gun which was more in range than our gun, and they bashed that post, they hit it with their anti-tank guns, anti-aircraft guns. They broke all the bunkers. They had put K-oil barrels on the skyline and they put them on fire. And because of that, you see, the boys were highly demoralized, and they all went to the reverse slope. So when I took charge of my unit, I went to see this post, even though it had snowed. And the orders were that you can't move when the snowfall starts. So, but I still climbed this post. It was a very tough climb. And when I got there, I said, I want to see the post. So they said, sir, aage mat jao, fire bahut aata hai. I said, what nonsense? I am not here to be stopped by the fire. I haven't climbed for the whole night to just be told that I can't go to the forward edge. Take me there. So they had to take me there, and the whole post was khali. All bunkers were broken. I was amazed. And when I reached the forward edge, there was an army detachment there, an anti-aircraft gunner, and there was a small little Havaldar from Garhwal, from Uttarakhand, Havaldar Raje Singh. He died later, poor boy. But he said, he said, sir, you are the new commanding officer. I said, yes. He said, sir, I want to talk to you. I said, all right, I want to talk to you alone, not with the BSF boy. So I said, acha. I said, what happened, beta? So he said, साहब मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूं कि हमारी फौज की यहाँ बहुत बेइज्जती हुई. वो पाकिस्तानियों ने बहुत इस पोस्ट पे भारी भारी वेपन्स ले आए, बहुत फायर किया, सारे बंकर तोड़ दिए जैसे आप देख रहे हैं, और आग लगा दी वो के ऑयल बैरल में, और ये सब लोग पीछे चले गए बेचारे घबरा के. और उसके बाद सर पाकिस्तानियों ने अपने फायर बंद किया, अपने बंकरों पे निकल आए 29 बलूच पलटन के और झगड़ा करने लगे. मतलब कि वो कह रहे थे कि माँ का दूध पिया है तो फायर करके देख. So I said, अच्छा. I said, don't worry, Rajesh Singh, you have done your duty, you have told me, the rest is my job. So I went back and I made sure that I sent one of my best Subedar Sher Singh, with my best boys from the whole battalion. I sent them to reinforce this post, and from that post, you see, we sent anti-tank guns there, and then I sent an artillery gun there. It was a gun that fires 11 kilometers.
Yeah.
So I sent that gun up, and it was very difficult because the mules fell down. The slope was so steep. Then I asked the local villagers to take that gun up. We broke it into pieces, and they used bamboo poles, and they took that gun up. When they took that gun up, I asked them, are you ready to fight now? They said, yes, sir. So then I reached that post. I climbed the highest picket on that post, and I said, okay, all guns, fire. So my boys started firing. And then the Khalsa boys with the artillery gun, they were behind me, So they said, Saab ji, sanu bhi mauka milna chahiye tha. I said, what are you waiting for? Maro inko, salon ko. And then we all opened up. And when that heavy gun opened up, my God, you should have seen what happened to the post on the Pakistani side. My God, they had built these sangars and stone walls, and जैसे झरना चलता है पत्थरों का, वो पत्थर झरने की तरह गिरने लगे, and all that. And the Pakistani started crying, पागल हो गए हो क्या, बंद करो, and all that, And we said, we kept on firing, and that post, every bunker there was devastated. And finally the Pakistanis got so scared that they left their forward post slope and they went on the reverse side, the rear side, and they hid there for their lives, just to save their lives. And then, what they did was that they raised a white flag. White flag means hamari bus ho gayi, surrender. So my signal operator who was with me with the radio said, he said, sir, he tapped me. I said, what happened? He said, sir, देखो वो सफेद झंडा दिखा रहे हैं. So I saw that सफेद झंडा. So I asked him, तेरे को दिख रहा है? So he was quite flabbergasted. It was plain visible, So I said, तेरे को दिख रहा है? So he said, हाँ sir. I said, तेरे को दिख रहा है? He said, no sir. I said, सालों को, because don't stop. When they had the bigger guns, I mean, they made our lives miserable, and they did so much damage to my boys. So don't stop just because they are raising a white flag. It won't stop so easily. Bash them up. 1 hour we bashed that post. We didn't leave a single bunker, single wall standing there. We destroyed everything. And then the boy said, sir, maja nahi aa raha, they are not firing back. So I said, okay, nahi, 10 minutes aur maro inko. So 10 minutes aur mara. So then I said, okay, whistle bajaya, to bola stop. I said, sab jawan apne bunkeron ki chhat pe aa jaएं. So they all came out on their bunker ki chat, bole, ab bhangra karo.
Achha.
For half an hour we did bhangra. And the Pakistanis had been bashed so badly, that they did not dare to open fire. When I look back at my 37 years in the army, that was the high point of my career. I have never seen the enemy bashed so badly that he refuses to open fire when you come in the open because he is so scared. He's been bashed so, his head has been battered so badly.
So
That
this is
was, the only language the Pakistanis understand, and we used it there, and we never had any trouble thereafter. From 29 Baluch, at least that was one battalion of the Pakistani army. We sorted out nice and well and proper.
okay. So, and if we talk about the most emotional moment of your journey, military journey, though I can guess it, but still I would like to hear it from you.
Thank you. Whether the most emotional movement came in Kishtwar, there was one terrorist, Pathan terrorist. He was
Okay.
called Sarwar. That was his code name. He was a huge fellow, 6 feet 2, 3 inches tall, and he was dreaded in that area. People feared him. Two of our people had given intelligence against him, and he caught them, and he skinned them alive. You know what skinning is? He cut their skins with a knife, and while they were alive, he pulled the skin off, their entire skin off from their body. He was that kind of a chap. Very brutal, very, very feared. So I then asked one of my boys, Naik Mushtaq Zargar, I told him he was, from that area. So I said, Beta, you pretend that you have been kicked out of the army and you go back to your village where this chap comes, and you try and get me intelligence. I want this man dead. We want to sort him out, to make an example, because otherwise nobody is giving us information out of fear. It is so bad. So he went to that village, and ultimately he got to know he had married a young girl from that village, and then he had left her and gone for another girl. And when she protested, he took off his leather belt and he beat her black and blue. Black and blue. Now hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And that girl, she gave him information. I'll tell you when he's coming for that other girl, And he passed on the information to us. And that other girl was also related to him. So he was very angry. He wanted revenge. So he came personally and told me, sir, the server is going to come so and so date to so and so girl house. So we took a huge force and we surrounded that house. And when he came at night, we caught this man. There was a big firefight, and ultimately we killed him. But as Zargar was leading the way to that house, this man opened fire and put about 20 bullets in his stomach. And Zargar was very badly wounded. So there was no helicopter it was still 2:33 in the morning. No helicopter could come at night because we don't have night flying helicopters. So we took him all the way back to Kishtwar. There was a civil hospital there. We banged the bloody door. They had shut there for the night. We banged the door till they opened up, and then they said, treat this boy. Keep him alive till the helicopter comes.
Yeah.
So they started treating him, and after some time, I was waiting outside when, the boys told me, sir, Zargar wants you to talk to him. So I went to Zargar. I said, yes, beta, what is the problem? Don't worry, you'll be okay. I held his hand. So he said, साहब, please, मैं इनको कब से बोल रहा हूँ मेरे को पानी पिला दो, मेरा मुंह सूख गया, ये मेरे को पानी नहीं दे रहे हैं, सर प्लीज इनको बोलो मेरे को पानी दे. So I was furious. I said, this boy has been here half an hour and you couldn't give him a drink of water? What kind of swine are you? I almost beat up that doctor. So the doctor said, no, sir, एक मिनट, आप please side पे आइए. So he took me to the side and he said, साहब इसको पेट में गोली लगी है 20. अगर पानी दिया तो इसके लिए बहुत खराब होगा. Therefore हम इसको saline दे रहे हैं, हम पानी नहीं दे सकते. So I was quite, what can you say after that? So I went to that boy and he caught my arm and he started shaking me and he said, Saab, please, pani pila do, main mar raha hu. So I couldn't take it anymore. So I asked one of my boys, beta, apna water bottle kholo, iska muh gila kar do, iska muh sukh gaya. So he gave him that water bottle, grind muh gila kar le. That this is how they talk in the army. So this boy snatched that water bottle and gut, and he drank the whole water bottle before we could stop him. And then, he gave me a look of great gratitude. He put his head back on the pillow and he died. Even as I was holding his hand and telling him, hold on, the helicopter is coming, we'll send you to the best hospital possible. This man died. I have never been able to forget that scene. And here was a boy, he was a Muslim, but what he did for his country, it's extremely sad how our boys sacrifice. It's something I have not been able to forget, or what shall I say, forgive myself for.
You had no dream कि हाँ यही करना है. But when you lost your brother, it was confirmed that yes, I want to do this only. This is my dream. This is my goal, right? So
Absolutely, absolutely. You see, as a child those days, we used to have small commando comics.
yeah,
Those were about World War One, World War Two, and they used to come for 50 paisa those days. And 50 paisa was a big sum. My elder brother, who was a great cricketer, very handsome chap, very extrovert, outgoing, he was in the army, he was a captain, he was in 11 J&K Rifles, and he was just 23 years of age when the 65 war happened, and he was martyred.
yeah,
He died in a mine blast,
yeah,
M16 mine. His body went to pieces. So that really shook me up. And I said, whatever bloody well happens, I will join the army and armed forces and take revenge for my brother. So he died in 65. The very next year, I had applied for the NDA without telling my mom and dad. And I gave the written exam. I got through. Then I had to go to Mysore for my interview. Now,
yeah,
I couldn't tell a lie. What am I going to Mysore for? So I had to tell mom and dad. And they were very upset, very angry. My father was very upset. He said, हमने ठेका ले रखा है कि हम ही लड़के देते जाएं और नहीं है families. I said, Dad, that my mind is made up. Please don't. He said he was very keen I should join the IAS. He said, okay, go. It will be good practice for your IAS, but you are not joining the army. But go for the interview, all right. So I went for the interview, and to everyone's surprise, when the merit list, all India merit list came out, I was number 2 in the army and navy, and number 3 in the air force in the
yeah,
entire India. And then something like 1,60,000, 2 lakh people used to apply, and I was number 2. So then people were started wondering whether I'd do well, or maybe this was my path in life. So even that dad hesitated, but then I one day just called a rickshaw, put my trunk, and I said, I'm going. So then my father said, don't fight and go. And next day he dropped me off at the railway station. 67, I was in the NDA, June 67, 1.5 years after my brother had died.
So, but when you fought against Pakistan and we won the battle, so did you had that feeling कि हाँ बदला पूरा हुआ, जिस दिन के लिए आर्मी ज्वाइन की थी वो पहला मेरा काम हो गया है कि हाँ इस दिन के लिए मैंने आर्मी ज्वाइन की थी.
Absolutely, absolutely. There was a feeling of vindication. You see, अगर लाश की दुर्गति होती है तो फिर बदला लेना अनिवार्य होता है. ये प्रथा है भारत में. तो इसके लिए मैं वहाँ फौज में गया, and I volunteered to go to the battlefield. I could have spent my time in peace station like a number of other people. They haven't spent a career in the army and haven't heard a shot being fired in anger. There are people like that also. But I volunteered for every assignment, and half my military life I was in the battlefield. And every chance I got to take revenge, I took it. I told you in Kargil, we bashed the Pakistanis. We killed about 45 Pakistanis, or 150 were wounded on their side. 2 villages were burnt, Shakma Thanus villages. Their people became refugees in Skardu. And then in Kishtwar, I killed a record number of terrorists. 108 who bolte mala puri karli. In that area, that is still a record. Nobody has killed that many terrorists in that difficult area. And then, of course, I served in Rajouri and Poonch as a major general. And again, we killed 108 Pakistani terrorists there. So 2 बार मैंने माला पूरी कर दी है. So I do think in some measure one has been able to take revenge.
Yeah. And when you won the first battle against Pakistan, and you had that feeling, you were obviously. How was your parents' reaction on this? कि हाँ हमने ये हमारा बेटा इसके लिए गया था, and he has completed his task. He has taken the revenge. How was their reaction? आपके
You
parents को
see,
देख.
my mother was very scared because unfortunately, one after the other, I kept going to the battlefield. So she was very worried that she should not lose her second son also. But with the prayers of my mother, my wife, my daughter, I came out without a scratch.
Yeah.
You know, the beauty is I have been in one battlefield. I have not only been shot at by AKs, I have been shelled by mortars, by artillery guns, firing specifically to kill me. And because of the prayers of my wife, daughter, mother, I came out without a scratch. I came out without a scratch from the battlefield. My father, of course, was very happy. And I'm very, he had told me, look, if you are joining the army, then don't waste your time. Become a general at least, and make the family proud. So I'm very happy. I became a major general, and the happiest person in the world was my father when he saw me. Fortunately, he died at the age of 99.
In fact, when you went to Mysore for your interview and physical test, he was not confident enough that you will clear it, because you've always been very studious. You were not into like sports and activities. He was not, and he must be very shocked that okay, this guy has secured second rank. I was not even confident enough that he will clear.
Yes, he was. Actually, he was. But the thing was that I was very casual about my appearance. I used to have ink all over my clothes, and I used to in this thing. And in the army, they insist on a very smart turnout and very good this thing. So he was worried on that score. And because I was very intellectual type, he wasn't sure that not all people in the army are very intellectually inclined. So he wasn't sure whether I would, some boss of mine would not like it and would be very tough with me or, that way. But it turned out to be very good. If I had my life all over again, I would still go back to the Indian Army.
Oh, so sweet. So, people keep asking this. वो बड़े उत्सुक होते हैं ये जानने के लिए. What an ordinary day looks like in the military life.
Oh, that depends on where you are. If you are in a peace station, you get up at 5, you go for PT, 6 to 7 you do PT, then you come back, do office, do training, you come back in the evening, 4 o'clock, you do games, and then you have the roll call, the fall in, and you get back tired at night and sleep. You train very hard in peace. If you are in the battlefield area, most of the operations are at night. So we sleep by day and we work by night, we operate by night. So it depends on where you are. And sometimes if you are on a high post like Chola, all 16,000 feet closer to God, and maybe the whole day you will do nothing. Nothing except crack your fingers. And I never used to crack all my fingers together because there's nothing to do. There was a Chinese post opposite. So I used to crack them one by one because I used to get so bored. But that is the time where your reading habit helps you. If you meditate, that helps you to just pass the loneliness, just pass the time. So it depends on where you are.
Okay, considering the current situation with China and what has happened in the Galwan Valley, so it's a hypothetical question. If you would have been in charge, if you would have been commanding, तो आप क्या suggest करते government को या क्या करना चाहिए था आपके according?
I would not have suggested. I would have just opened fire and killed 100, 200, 300 more Chinese people than we have done with our bare hands. In our times, we never used to look over the shoulder for orders to open fire.
Yeah.
Our superiors trusted us. They gave us all initiative, and we never used to ask permission to open fire in my time. In my time, we never used to ask permission to open fire. I would have just opened fire and killed at least 500, 600 Chinese.
ओके, सो अगर आपके टाइम की एक मिलिट्री जर्नी थी, मिलिट्री लाइफ होती थी, और आज के टाइम की काफी सालों का डिफरेंस है, तो क्या चेंजेस आए हैं, मतलब क्या डिफरेंसेस हैं, बी इट पॉजिटिव और नेगेटिव?
No, we are a much stronger army now. We have much better equipment,
या
and our boys are very combat hardened. And they have, we have maintained our standards. Let me assure you, I have been going back to the NDA. I have been seeing the boys there. They're physically very tough,
passionate enough,
and
yeah.
they are still there. Only thing is, what I find is that they look over their shoulder for orders. In our time, we never used to wait for orders. We used to just do it.
Okay, so also if we consider the situation with Nepal, Prime Minister KP Oli, he's been like making many statements, and some of his statements are so weird that we can't decide whether to get upset or to laugh, be it his statement of Shri Ram or anything else. I mean, he's been making so stupid statements. People of Nepal have been very good friend of us. उन्होंने हमारा साथ दिया है वॉर में. But as a country, shouldn't we like stay in front of them only कि नहीं जी अभी तो हमारा country to country हो रहा है, अगर तुम्हारा प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऐसा बोलेंगे तो उस देश के लोग भी हमारे लिए वैसे ही होंगे.
The fact of the matter is that with the people of Nepal, we have roti beti ka rishta, and I
Yeah.
keep saying khoon ka rishta because there are 40 battalions of Gurkha soldiers in the Indian army who have fought every war since independence, and many of them have laid down their lives fighting for India. So we have a very special relationship with the people of Nepal, and we are deeply upset that this man, Oli, who is thoroughly corrupt. He is called, by the people of Kathmandu, the Ceausescu of Nepal. Ceausescu was a Romanian dictator of communist dictator who was a chore of the highest order. So this man, just to save his job, has been trying to spoil relationships with India to try and whip up passions against India there. I'm sure the people of Nepal will see that he is thrown out. The pity is that we as Indians did a self goal in Nepal by getting the communists, the Maoists there, and they have been a source of great nuisance and problem to us. And we did it. That is the pity. In the Congress time, we sent Prachanda and all these people there, and we thought that they would be at least loyal towards India, or they would be friendly towards India, but they have not been. They have turned towards China, and they are almost doing something like what happened to Tibet. If they let the Chinese come in, that is what will happen. What happened to Tibet? They lose their freedom.
So we have banned almost 59 apps, Chinese apps in India. So do you think, isn't it the high time to ban Chinese items as well?
We must ban Chinese items. We must boycott all Chinese items. I have been saying that for the last 10 years. That this Swadeshi Jagran Manch used to keep calling me and tell them, please don't send the jobs from here to China. You mean to say India can't make Ganesh ki murti and Lakshmi ki murti? Does that have to be made in China? We can't make diyas. We can't make ladis. Why are we exporting jobs to China? The people in India don't get jobs because of the Chinese, because they dump their saman here and they kill our industry. It's about time that we stop that nonsense and we boycotted the Chinese goods.
Okay, this is one more thing. It's very emotional part. Like on the very last day of your service, you have to tear your identity card, army identity card. So how was that feeling, the emotions behind? So please let us know.
You see, as you spend 37, actually, if you count the years of training, it is 41 years in the army. And you put uniform and you put boots. The uniform becomes a part of your skin. I'm not ashamed to confess that I cried like a baby. And when I came back, my wife said, "What's happened to you?" So I said, "I have fought my last battle." And you know what my wife said? "Don't worry. If I know you, there are many more battles to fight." And that's what I have been doing after retirement. Fighting for Netaji, fighting for Indian history.
Yeah, be it Saraswati Chhatrapati civilization, Subhash Chandra Bose. I mean, you have inspired us like anything by your writing. So just for a bit, I would like to talk about your journey as an author as well, right? We have talked everything about military. We have talked about your experiences, your happiest and emotional moments. So how and when did you decide that, yes, now I want to write a book and now I want to become an author? I mean, what was the thought process? What were the thoughts and emotions behind that?
Look, when I was in school, I used to be very good at writing essays. And then I started working on my school magazine. I started writing. Writing was always, writing and fighting go together more than fighting and football.
Okay.
Writing and fighting are, you'll be quite surprised. And some of the great soldiers have also been great writers. And in the Indian Army, we have a Sant Sipahi tradition. When I was in the NDA, I was made the cadet editor of the NDA journal. And in my third term only, and for 3 terms, I was my editor of my NDA journal. And I've been writing, I used to keep writing a diary when I was in the mountains and I was very lonely. Most of my poetry books I wrote in the mountains, which were published later. And then I was deeply into Indian philosophy. So my guru inspired me to write quite a lot. He encouraged me to write. And then, we, from the writings, I used to write articles for various magazines, military magazines, and we earned some money. And I bought a little red typewriter. And my wife learned typing. And, so we made a team. So she would type and edit these things and give me suggestions. And then we started writing books. And today, I'm happy to inform you that 35 books have been published and 2 more have just been done. They are right now in print. So for my 37 years in the army, there are 37 books now.
That's what I was about to say. Also, you have written so many wonderful books. Which one is the closest to your heart?
The closest to my heart is my guru's biography.
Okay.
My guru's biography that I wrote, The Light of Wisdom. It's on my guru, Swami Pranavananda Saraswati. So it is his biography is my favorite book. My
So
favorite book.
you've spoken about your wife, and be it your social media, you always, like, you don't leave any stone unturned to thank her. She has been with you through thick and thin. She's been such a strong pillar in your life. When you were in the battlefield, she was fulfilling all the responsibilities at home, right? So, but during your school days and your teenage, you were very introvert. You were not into girls, all studious, like inked on the clothes. So, was it a love marriage or an arranged marriage?
No, it was an arranged marriage, but I want to thank my wife publicly once again for all that she has done for me. When I was fighting on the frontiers, it was she who brought up the children alone.
Yeah.
She is an MA in history. She is very fond of Sikh history, which I am also very deeply into. And she raised the children alone. She has been a great source of support and strength right throughout. And even now, she helps me with my books and goes through the manuscripts, gives suggestions, and edits them. And, we form a great team together. And like I keep saying, once I was called for a Lifetime Achievement Award. So they asked me, General Saab, please tell us what was your greatest achievement of your 37 years in the army. And you know what I told them? It was staying alive. And if I'm alive today, it is because of the prayers of my wife and my daughter. So I would like to thank them again on your show. And thank you very much for having me over. Jai Bharat, Jai Hind.
So we love you and we respect you, and thank you so much for being
Thank you.
who you are.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right.
God bless you. God bless you.
Thank you.